Chapter 8 The Deceiver and the Demon Heads. This entire path was like a dream, because the more I felt, the more nothing was as it seemed. 1 minute Shruti was a woman outside of me, then she was within the harmonium rhythm. But now it seemed we were not two, but rather we were one. With this body present in each moment, it was the mind that felt like a time traveler, and in the mystical cornfield, we discovered a blissful nature within our human experience. But of course, the mind wanted to go deeper into the mystery of our concealed nature. Surely this mystical cornfield and spirit rock signify unity within our existence, yet the vast population was still lost in the material world. So there had to be a way to unite all of us together, but what was the path to get there?
A path of unlearning,
said Nandi. How so?
The process of life on earth is beneficial when we make use of our outward existence and pair our awareness with an inner journey. This leads us to a profound spiritual discovery, and when we do this correctly, we balance both the outer and inner worlds into a natural state of harmony. Soon you shall realize how the divine instructions have been misused for selfish aims, for this is represented in a being who we call the Deceiver. He has crafted a horde of demon heads, which he uses to manipulate the world for his own selfish aim. This Deceiver has misled the world, and instead of leading us toward unity, he seeks more material production so he can hoard more money,
said Nandi. As we sat back upon our yak, with a forceful breath out, hooves trampled upon the ground as we accelerated away from the cornfields, back toward the cities along the earth. So if life is like a production, and this production is uniting us with the depth of our one total soul, then how could such a soulful production be hijacked? Who is this Deceiver you speak of, and how do his demon heads maintain control?
Each of us are in control of an individual body, while the self lives through us, and so no being is separate from the soul. While the demon heads are covered by ignorance, it blocks their connection to the spiritual source, which is why they seek to dominate with such harsh control. It is said that God lives within all men, but not all men live within God. As a demon head blocks us from knowing such divine love, we are not here to control the masses, but rather, divinity allows free will throughout humanity, and so any such ignorance is an unrefined starting point of the spiritual journey. Yet the Deceiver's wish seems to be keeping the masses in ignorance. That way, the Deceiver keeps the population divided so that humanity does not realize the stream of divine consciousness,
said Shruti. This Deceiver, how do you know he's real?
Look for yourself. Gaze upon what has become of human civilization,
said Nandi. When we approached the peak of the final hill before the civilized world, our senses became aware of the heavy industries and smog. The pure presence in the cornfield was long gone when we saw the city of human beings who were confused and distracted for so long. Giant billboards made them crave vodka and beer, while wireless broadcasts and mindless news flooded their brains with sporadic information. This was the limited knowledge that Nandi spoke of with the aphorisms. As this limited knowledge leads the soul deeper into bondage, computers churned out so much senseless data, which became a giant veil that cut off people's spiritual awareness. Only then could I realize how humanity had fallen into a phony system to increase material production while they were distracted from reaching the higher state of consciousness. Nandi had seen it, but I could not fathom what had become of the earthly civilizations. The populations were tricked, and so their attention was directed to mindless matters as they had been led away from unity into material debt. But what on earth was happening? Why would such a deceiver distract the masses from fruition, which was the union into divine consciousness? I see a problem, but I am not above them, for I too am just like all these people, as I have also worn a demon head. Yet within all of these beings, there was still access to our divine light, but with that demon head well fastened upon so many of their shoulders. Who would teach them to release their selfish desires, where they would be redirected? That deceiver wanted more customers so he could feed off their never-ending desire for greed. And from what we could see, if our spiritual evolution was like a production, then the end goal had been blocked and the divine production cycle was hijacked. Where the goal of fruition leads us into unity, this spiritual production was blocked and redirected away from the higher consciousness. And now it was obvious to see that so many people had been tricked to walk in circles where they were tied into knots, seeking more and more money. Did the soulful beings even have a chance? How was there any way for the light of divine wisdom to advance? Surely it was still possible for our soul to escape, but how could anyone get free when they were distracted by the deceiver's diabolical demon-headed production staff? How could we make lasting progress? Why, what was once designed for spiritual evolution had been converted to produce and consume material things for selfish enjoyment. So many sacred temples had fallen vacant, and now the focus was on manufacturing lines to produce more components, which led us to forget the very purpose of our spiritual existence. It wasn't just once or twice this happened, but the demon heads had multiplied all over the earth. Now, of course, I had felt how the mystical cornfield and the spirit rock was a gateway to the divine life, but how come it was so rare to find a way out? Somehow, the deceiver misguided the people and taught them to desire material things. All these people's brains were programmed to pursue titles, fame, and money instead of true and everlasting freedom. Humans were caught in the never-ending production of suffering, while these people were instructed to seek alcohol, prescription medication, and even lustful desires as their medicine. All these instructions came from paid ads that were littered through the cities and towns. And if that wasn't tough enough, the demon heads had big mouths to distract the young children's attention with their podcasts, galas, parties, and award shows. In shock of this horrible confusion, the spiritual path was like the sunlight, blocked by the production of smog and pollution. This pollution was humanity's own creation, because we had covered our own soul's true requirements and rerouted our life pursuits into endless production for more material productivity. This new age production directed human awareness into endless pursuits for more stuff. We all had amnesia because we couldn't see how we were covered by our own madness.
It's now or never,
said Shruti. Then what is the solution back into unity?
Simple. The light will illuminate the root of human suffering. But still, all beings have free will, so it's up to humanity if they wish to listen. In times of darkness, there is only one thing to do. Hold up the light in hopes that others will come to find it. From this, two things can happen. First, we will open up the doorway out of confusion for others to follow, or the production of the demon heads will try to cover our light and lead the world into ruin. Bizarre as it may be, we're watching it happen. The demon heads will either destroy themselves and the world, or our soulful nature of humanity will lead our truest self into fruition,
said Shruti. As we journeyed deeper into the civilized cities, it seemed that so few people were aware of why our souls had taken birth. So many were sidetracked away from spiritual nourishment that every soul lacked. And this was a lost world with many natural disasters rising up from the land, while at least half of the world prepared to fight each other with brutal attacks. The demon heads had spread, and the Deceiver's influence was clear. But was he near? Was the Deceiver hidden or disguised in plain sight? His fear was contagious, and his influence had spread across the globe everywhere.
Bow to the light in them. Have you forgotten to honor the great beings who have once worn a demon head? Look within their hearts. You and I are not separate from any of them,
whispered Shruti. The light! What light? This modern day is so dark and seems to foster only space for the darkness of night. Confused and concerned as to why all their inner light was covered by a demonic nature, I stopped by a man on the street who wore a demon head and said, "Excuse me, sir. I don't mean to be a bother, but I have to ask you a question." He looked me up and down with an angry face.
"What's the matter?"
he said. "What is the purpose of our lives?"
"Get away from me! I have to get to my office. Don't annoy me with such an idiotic question,"
he said. The man was off and away when I stopped by a homeless person on the street, when I saw our light disguised as a beggar. "How can I help you?" I asked. "Can you give me money to buy more liquor?" she said. My legs stumbled back in shock. Were all these people lost? My God, we've got to get to the bottom of this.
Follow our soul, for the spirit is what we are in service of,
said Shruti. Everywhere we went, demon heads seemed to cover the land. Such demon heads ran the news stations, both Fox and CNN, and they ran all the political parties. But what I didn't expect is that the demon heads were worn by the famous people who influenced the masses. The demon heads put ads over their programs as they were in pursuit of more and more money. The world's favorite shows were overrun with demon heads, as the light of our soul was cut off from the physical body, but no one seemed to remember that our true nature is our spirituality. Some of the demon heads made millions while naked on OnlyFans sites. Oh, they'd become obsessed with lust, pornography, and muscles. The demon heads obeyed their cravings as the human production cycles had turned people into addicts off prescription drugs through bizarre marketing. Each advertisement was now connected into the mobile phones, where demon heads had invaded civilian homes. Each person was so distracted by their screens that a soulful purpose was concealed by the electric distortion as the governments began to lose control. Oh, I wanted to scream, but we couldn't escape this horrible reality, which promoted extreme greed as it towered over the poverty and scarcity. So many people lived with amnesia, unaware of the true source of spiritual abundance and prosperity, all because it was easier to follow the selfish demon heads and obey the deceiver's lies and hypocrisy. If only we could snap out of it. It seemed as if everyone was misled by the demon heads. If only we could follow the path of spiritual fruition instead.
Why fret when you know the way? And so we should ask, how did you learn to cut off your own demon head?
Asked Shruti. Before an answer arose with words, the mind was consumed in this reality, which was our ultimate nightmare. The world leaders refused to change anything because the current systems were designed so that the most powerful demon heads maintained control over the world's wealth and power. Here the government's deep state had gotten lured by bribes and they fell into corruption. Now even the governments refuse to offer lasting solutions. Imagine what happens when villains pretend they are the world's heroes, and all these politicians plastered their faces across billboards so that more and more people would follow the demonic horde, thinking this was the way of humanity's true culture. I can't think straight. It's all madness. What happened to us? Just look at who the demon heads have elected to lead us. The deep state is poisonous to the population. We must change this.
Hence why we must continue on the path to fruition,
said Shruti. It was pitiful what politics had done. The deep state pretended to care about the forests, rivers, and spiritual evolution, but they controlled the markets and incentivized people to trade in their souls and become influenced by the masses so that the old ways of material production could continue to generate millions and billions. The demon heads would start wars and push troops closer to borders. This would allow the demon heads to manufacture more bullets and bombs while increasing profit just as long as other people became the killers. The demon heads seduced these murderers, to listen to them, which led extremist groups to blow up twin towers by which the politicians hid their criminal activity. Meanwhile, I couldn't see how the government was connected to the Deceiver, but still, both seemed to distract the masses with lies and replace the population's intellect with the ambition to grow more wealthy. And so, we were entering into the battle of materialism versus spirituality. Holy shit, don't tell me it's World War III,
it's up to us who else creates our reality,
said Shruti. Then what do we do?
Kundalini will lead us to the place where the truth can be uncovered. We must descend into Naga Nation, where we will unearth what must be discovered,
said Shruti. Nagas?
Yes, the celestial serpents who live under the earth and below the oceans,
said Shruti. Shruti was adamant, but something in me was pulled by another direction. We were going to need help, but first, I needed to be certain who was in control. Was it the governments, the deep state, or the Deceiver who led the demon heads? Our third eye was locked into a state of contemplation when I felt how Nandi realized the urgency of our situation. In this city, many wild ones roam, and although the leader of the demon heads was unknown, we wouldn't be able to understand the intricate workings of the government's powers, and so I suspected we should find the Deceiver who had been all on his own. And if one goes in search of the Deceiver, then one should be careful of what they may find. In my body, I was terrified, but we had to start somewhere to see who was the real mastermind. As I climbed aboard the ancient yak, he transported Shruti, Kundalini, and I to the place we were meant to find. Through the city, to the highest building up high, I followed the Deceiver's signs until we came to meet a man in a suit who stood at the door of the most grand tower in the sky. As it turns out, that devil of a Deceiver isn't hard to locate. Using the imagination, all you have to do is request the Deceiver's presence in your own mind, and then you'll get welcomed right past the gates. So for those who want to find the Deceiver's influence will appear in an instant. And since we wanted to get to the bottom of this, it was easy to get a visit. Before I knew it, I knocked on his door and stood before the Deceiver to discover if it was him, the deep state, or the governments who were the real leaders of the demon heads. And as I gazed into his eyes, I asked him one question. Why?
To divide,
said the Deceiver. But why?
Did you see what they did to me? Our so-called leader threw a grand party, sat me in the middle, and during the entire dinner, they mocked me in front of everybody. They called it comedy. They taunted me. Oh, I'm going to surprise everyone when I take control of the world. And before long, everyone in the world will be working for me. Now what do you say? Are you with me?
Said the Deceiver. In his hand was a red hat with the number 666 upon it, and he offered it to me as if he wanted me to wear it. What's with this?
All my maggots wear it,
he said. He waved me into the penthouse, but I froze in the hallway because the neighboring rooms were filled with nude models and porn stars. These were young women, A few were 13 or so. And then I saw images of even younger children's pictures all across the walls. He seemed to be ranking these women or judging them. What is this?
It's my Miss Universe beauty pageant,
said the Deceiver. The entire luxury condominium complex was filled with ruthless capitalists, while each floor had its own drug dealer and even had a Coca-Cola button. As I peered inside the Deceiver's suite, it was obvious his room was the most grand, and his name was even on top of the tower. It only took a second to realize that the Deceiver was an addict, as he was obsessed with his own image and power.
Thirsty? My servants will make you a drink,
he said. No, I'll pass.
You know, you only live once, so you better enjoy it before you're dead. Maybe you prefer Adderall, cocaine, or prescription drugs instead?
Asked the Deceiver. No, I'm fine. But why would you want to divide?
Didn't you see how they mocked me? They only spread fake news on the left side. I'm going to rule the entire earth, because how else will I get what's mine? Said
the Deceiver. But what more do you need? He squeezed his face while he bit his own teeth. This seemed to reflect what happens when greed poisons the mind as it turns selfish wants into needs. Now, of course, this Deceiver was a fellow human, but his soul was covered by so much hidden aggression, and so the Deceiver's face turned bright orange as he began fuming. All it took was one question before it triggered a near volcanic reaction. In a matter of moments, I predicted the Deceiver would spew, erupt, and unlash a terrible spell of hatred. What else do you need? I asked him.
I need the world to stop talking about the pedophile files,
the Deceiver screamed. What do you mean, the pedophile files?
Well, I have the master plan, and since everyone is aware of them, I'm going to run for office. Then once they vote me in, I'll just tell them that the left side is filled with pedophiles, because as long as I get in power, I can hide anything I want,
said the Deceiver. Won't they ask to know the truth about the files that talk about the pedophiles?
Well, here's the truth. There was this guy named Jeffrey and his wife who were both total creeps. An absolute pathetic pedophile. And well, he was a school teacher before that, when he suddenly became a billionaire, because he ushered the most powerful people onto St. James Island so they could commit sexual acts with underage boys and girls. The whole island was a cesspool, and there are so many files, records, and thousands of hours of video footage from what happened on St. James Island. Now I'm here to make this country great again, but only when the people stop asking about the pedophiles,
said the Deceiver. And how do you know so much about these files of all the pedophiles? He wouldn't answer. And if you have evidence and video footage, why not release it to prove you're innocent? Once that's out in the open, I'm sure everyone would stop talking about it. They'll hear you out and even appreciate you once you allow them to see the truth for what it is. Again he squirmed before his legs began to swell. After that, I saw a mark appear on his right hand when he called the woman in as he began to yell. This assistant of his quickly put makeup on the mark over his right hand, and that's when I noticed she wore a red hat, and on the front of the hat it said maggot. Hey, so why not just release the evidence to prove your innocence?
Evidence? What evidence? There is no evidence at all. There's no records, no flight logs, and no transaction of any pedophile files. But I'm going to trick the population to believe there is. It's all a made-up lie by the liberal left. It's a pedophile hoax. I am the perfect person. I'll be the talk of the world, and all the selfish government leaders are trying to hurt me. All over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey the pedophile. And just because I was best friends with him for a decade doesn't mean anything. And all the pedophile files were written by the radical left and crooked citizens and the losers and criminals of the deep state administration who conned the world. They created the files of all the pedophiles as a scam, just as they create all the fake news, and now my so-called friends are playing right into their hands.
The Deceiver paused. I thought you said there are files, and then you said there are no files, and now you said there are files again, but they were created by someone else? So why are you making such a big deal of this?
The radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again. These scams and hoax are all they're good at. It's all they have. They are no good at governing, no good at policy, and no good at picking winning candidates. Their scam is what we will forever call the pedophile hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this bullshit. Hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lessons and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for many years. These weaklings continue forward and do the devil's work because I don't want their support anymore. Now, if you will, I think it's time for a prayer,
said the Deceiver. At once, his female advisor ran in wearing the red hat with the marking upon her forehead, and so she raised her right hand and said, Wherever I go, God rules. When I walk upon the ground, God walks upon the ground. I declare that wherever I walk is holy ground, because I am standing there, said the false prophet.
And tell this man about me,
said the Deceiver. To say no to a fearless leader would be saying no to God, said the false prophet. After all of this, I still hadn't even entered their grand ballroom, mostly because I saw a statue of a horned animal covered in dollar bills that they appeared to be praying to. Then upon the dollar bills, I saw that instead of stating, In God we trust, it said, In the Deceiver we trust.
Are you going to come in or not?
Said the Deceiver. Sure, I guess. I took a step in and gazed around.
Good, now no more stupid questions,
said the Deceiver. But I don't understand your reasoning for division. Aren't we here on a spiritual mission? Isn't the purpose of human life called fruition?
Division is God's mission. Just look at this,
said the Deceiver. A moment later, he made a call when he turned on the news to reveal how he'd be running in the election that was up and coming.
And once I win, I'm going to summon raids upon all the left-leaning cities across the country. I'll start riots by getting the immigrants riled up. I'll make sure chaos erupts for everyone who doesn't support me. And the left-leaning cities will go up in flames,
said the Deceiver. But division is wrong. Harmony is right.
I'm afraid you're wrong. I am the right way, and it requires division because they need me to lead them. And once I expedite chaos around the world, then those who wear my red hats will be the only ones allowed in my kingdom of heaven. That's when I'll create the tariffs and taxes on the poor. That way I'll throw them down into hell so they serve the rich forevermore. I control the markets so that everyone has to pay me to get a meeting with God. I'll make sure I own God's kingdom, and only the most successful and powerful people are allowed to enter,
said the Deceiver. But why?
Because once the deep state's rule ends, they will know that I am God. Everyone will bow down to me, and I will have command over the eternal law. Don't you understand what's happened? God has summoned me because I am the living form of God. God has called me to rule the world, and that is why God allows me to fight the liberal ways with chaos. I will destroy them because the left is the filth of the earth, and the more I rule, the more everyone will know that I am God. So post that as my truth,
said the Deceiver. I'm afraid you must be mistaken. Even if you did this all legally, what you're doing goes against the scriptures and the commandments.
Did you see what they did to me? They called it comedy, but it was a mockery. And once I gain my power over the government, I'm going to cancel any comedy that ever speaks a bad word about me. Plus, Aren't you smart enough to realize what's happening? Because before long, I'm going to become the world's president, and I'll be the head of human production,
said the Deceiver. But why would you force the people to work mindlessly and continue on in a circle of material greed when we only have a limited lifetime? Why not help us come together so everyone has what we need?
Because of that horrific comedy, and because I'm running out of time, I've met with many others like you, so don't waste my time. You see all those maggots who wear the red hats? That's what will become of the entire population after I win the election,
said the Deceiver. But why?
Imagine a diamond mine. They're digging for my treasure. And as long as the people stay separated from our true nature, they'll keep working for me forever, digging their way deeper, seeing how selfish one can live. They'll work for me, life after life, always afraid to step out of line. Otherwise, I'll toss them into the pit of poverty. It's simple, really, so I'll tell you exactly how I do it. I divide and distract. It's a never-ending loop. Just look at the news. It's all the division needed. I'll cancel CNN and I'll take over Fox News. I'll only give million and billion-dollar contracts to the channels that support me until I manage one winning political party. I am not interested in free speech, freedom, or peace, but I want people to be consumed by their desires rather than find spiritual relief. I keep the world bound while the people shackle themselves to materialism. That way, I can make more money, and so I'll tell you why I do it, because it makes me so damn wealthy. I've got all the money. It's called fuck you money. I'll get more than anyone else. Oh, I'm on top of the world. I'll even buy the pyramids and the stock markets. And now you know why I do it,
said the Deceiver. Oh, so now we know that the Deceiver is a divider. But could he really keep us torn apart? So what I've learned is that the government is corrupt, and that the Deceiver wants to take them down, even though he's got no light within his heart. Without words, I decided there comes a time when we must speak with our actions to overcome our objections. I showed him a smile with gentle compassion. For I was once a young man on the earth who wore a demon head, but as we wake up, we rise out of such materialism and madness. Oh, time! I knew what time was going to do to all of us. It would kill us. But if we follow the path to fruition, then time could also liberate us. And I was so curious about humanity during this wild transition out of separateness. From now on, remind me to never tell the Deceiver what I'm thinking, but rather, I think it's best that we show him with our actions.
Why are you so silent? Did you know that God is a myth? It will never exist. I am God. I am divine. I alone rule the earth and it's all mine. So why don't you tell me exactly what you're planning?
Said the Deceiver. What does it matter? You already know what I'm after.
Well, whatever you're after, it won't work. I destroy all of those who defy me. I even own the systems who act in the so-called Justice Department,
said the Deceiver. Fine, I'll give you a hint. My plan is to unite all of us. He shook his head no, as if I didn't get it. But I'm not sure he understood who he was up against, because it was we who weren't going to quit.
Good luck with that bullshit,
said the Deceiver. In this world where hate and division seem to run supreme, in the land where you run us into ruin, I'm not against you, but I am anti-division. So in time, I'm going to make sure you're included. Now I winked because I wanted the Deceiver to take some time to think.
If you're smart, you won't even try. But if you're an idiot and try to do this shit that you say, I'm going to sue you and bury you in the world's most expensive lawsuit. I'll take everything from you. I'll destroy your reputation. If you try to bring it to fruition, I promise I'll throw you into prison. Or I'll do what I did to the other women who almost exposed the pedophile list. I killed them,
said the Deceiver. Wait, but you said the pedophile list was a hoax, but now you're claiming there's something to all of this? So I wonder, who was the pedophile's accomplice? And how many other people should we punish for all of this? He wouldn't answer the question, but rather he continued with his threats.
Oh, I'm going to make sure you look like an idiot, and I'll point out all your flaws and everything you ever did wrong so that no one trusts you again. I will accuse you of everything. I will slander your family's name. I will ridicule your father and mother until no one believes anything you say. I am the ruler of the world, and you're just a baby-back bitch. I am the one who owns all things and owns everyone. I am the most powerful man. You will feel my wrath,
said the Deceiver. He raised his right hand up, which had that obvious bruise marking upon it. Then after that, he made sure everyone else inside with him wore the red maggot hats. With such cruelty and chaos, I didn't know what to make of it, and so I imagined that what he needed most was loving kindness. You can let it out. I can take it.
You fucker! Are you listening to a word I say? I've got an army, and if you try anything, I'll make sure you never live to see another day,
said the Deceiver. Are you sure you're not avoiding the files with the pedophiles? It will only help the entire world if you release it.
You don't know what you're talking about because I'm the greatest person on the planet, and everyone else are idiots. Plus, I've only been found guilty on 34 counts, but it's all bullshit.
What's that? I pointed to the Deceiver's right hand.
I am a free man. I am the most powerful person on Earth. Soon I will be the head of human production, as I will be the president,
said the Deceiver. But how are you free if you're bound by earthly time? You are not free. Don't you see? You're still chained. With so much anger in his system, he reached for a red cap and put on that hat. Again, he had the makeup artist cover up the marking on his right hand when his face started to scoff.
You're insane. I manufacture all of the world's chains. Every living person is under my authority, and that's why I keep them chained. They're all the same and they report to me. I am the king of Earth, and that's why only my maggots and I are free,
said the Deceiver. Not so long ago, I wore the devil's chains. Yet now I believe there is a way to be freed from the oppression of division. Once we break free from the chains of our own suffering, we can find our way to a sacred safe haven. This is the part of the earthly human production that seems to be missing. And so, will you join us on the path to fruition? The Deceiver was shocked when he realized there was no chain on my legs or wrists, and so I turned my back to him and left. And if the Deceiver was listening, then don't mind me as we make a few changes to production. Instead of churning out profit and chaining people up as slaves or deporting them, take note as we reroute production into a pathway out of suffering. We call this next part Fruition.